49er faithful, thank you for tuning in again to the Niners Station podcast. Thank you, Ryan and Mark, for joining. We are doing our instant reaction to the game that we just watched against the Buccaneers, an away game coming off a bye week. What an awesome win! But it shouldn't have been that close. What do you guys think?
Fun, yes, and also stressful, yes. Thanks to Jake Moody, we'll get into it for sure. But man, that was a stressful game, but entertainment value was there.
Yeah, Ryan, Tommy, it's always good to talk to you guys after a victory. We finally get to have a victory Monday. I think it's only our second victory Monday of the year. The first time the Niners have won back-to-back games this year. So it's a very good day in Ninerland, but it definitely should have been much more of a blowout than it was. It came down to the end, which made us kind of stick around a little bit more and sit on the edge of our seats. But Moody was able to make up for his 3 missed field goals, and I think maybe one of those should not have been an option. But we can get into that. A Niner victory is what we needed to do, and we got Seattle coming up next week. So let's go Niners, and let's make this push for the remaining 8 games of the year, I think it is.
Well, let's just start off with one of the highlights of the game. Ricky Pearsall getting his first NFL touchdown was absolutely awesome to see. As someone that has started at Ricky Pearsall, my wide receiver 3, great to get the fantasy points, but also awesome to see a guy that has been practicing really hard, working hard to get back from the gunshot wounds, and come into a game and score a touchdown. We're talking about, 2 months out from being almost dead? Ricky Pearsall scores a touchdown, so that was great. Totally agree with the Jake Moody thing. I think we should just jump right into special teams. That's going to be one thing that we should focus on today. Jake Moody let us down. He came back from an injury, missed 3 field goals. Why did he come back early? Was he forced? Who knows? But here we are. I mean, we have Ricky Pearsall coming back from a gunshot wound, and Jake Moody can't recover from a hurt hamstring, ankle, whatever it was. That's tough.
I think the thing that hurts the most for me is knowing how much draft capital we invested into Jake Moody. Him being a 3rd-round pick, 99th overall in the 2023 NFL draft. People were criticizing us, wondering what the Niners were doing. Were we reaching, going for a kicker that high? And when you have performances like this, you kind of justify all of those talks, and it's just that many missed kicks. We could have put this game away earlier, and it could have been a much different story, but it came down to literally the very end, and that's from a 3rd-round kicker. So that just can't happen.
Yeah, Jake Moody, I got a text about, I think, midway through the 4th quarter, and it was my coworker. He said, Jake Moody, we've had 3 kickers this year, and Jake Moody has missed all of the kicks. So meaning the 2 guys that we picked up off the street to kick for us have not missed a field goal, but Jake Moody has missed all of the field goals that we've missed this year. And it's hard to judge a guy coming off an injury, right? Your first game back. It seemed like it was pretty windy based off the pregame coverage I was watching. It was very windy. The hair was blowing all over the place. But when you have a 3rd-round kicker, you are expected to make these kicks, and it put us in a position where we should not have been. It should have been a 2-score game halfway through the 4th quarter, where Niner fans were sitting back watching other games to see what's happening around the NFL. And we lost that kind of sense of security because of the way our kicking game was. And at the end of the day, he did recover. He won the game for us. But Deebo Samuel had to put a little fist to his face, which was interesting to see. It's not something you see out of the Niners. So what do you guys think about the Deebo kind of getting on the special teams in that game?
I think it's 100% warranted to get angry at the special teams because you're out there doing your best and you're Debo's coming off multiple injuries, a hospital pneumonia. He's out there doing his best, doing his thing, and he's pissed off because our special teams once again has let the team down. And that's terrible. Why are we every week, week in and week out, going through a special teams deficit against the other team? I mean, we had a muffed punt, a punt return. We have the 3 missed field goals. Why does the offense have to pick up the slack? It's going to be a close game. It needs to be a close game because we're doing everything right, not because we're giving the other team an advantage. That's my thoughts.
We're recording this shortly after the game. This is a true instant reaction. So I did see some things right before we hopped on here from Tabor Peppers kind of explaining to the reporters what happened. And I think he said that Deebo was trying to pump him up, trying to not make a whole lot of the situation. But like you said, something needs to happen with the special teams because we keep talking about it. If we want to be a playoff team, if we even want to think about the Super Bowl, special teams is so essential. You cannot reach those levels without any sort of consistent, solid special teams play.
Yeah, I mean, I will say one thing based off the special teams that I did see, because it put us in the situation, was the 49ers defense. They were in the situation late in the game where they needed to stop, right? And Niners have the lead and they need to make a stop. And this is back-to-back wins that has happened. We had a bye, obviously, but the previous week we got a stop for now against the Cowboys in clutch situation. And then this week, the Buccaneers got the ball back, opportunity to make a game out of it, and we were able to make a stop. So that's one thing I have seen in the last two games from the 49ers is the 49ers defense has been able to make stops in clutch situations, which has lost them games earlier in the year, but that's a turnaround, and I think that's a positive for the Niners.
Well, one thing to talk about now that you mentioned the Niners defense being able to make a stop is Renardo Green, I think, played really well today. First official start, I think he might have played more snaps than others in corners, but with Travarius Ward dealing with the loss of his child, the Niners gave him a break this week, or as long as he wants. He's probably going to take 2 weeks off, I think. But Renardo Green is able to hold it down. But you shouldn't be in a situation where you're asking your defense to play significantly better than the offense, right? We have a quarterback like Brock Purdy. Why are we asking our defense to shut down and limit a team to under 25 points if our special teams can't get it done? I mean, for me, that's really rough to watch. Again, week in and week out, we're talking about it on the Niners Station podcast. We're talking about it in every podcast. Special teams is blowing the game every week, and it blows my mind. Like, it's so obvious as a fan of the team, as a podcaster, why we can't make a difference, why we can't make a change. Why does this continually happen every single week? But here we are, again, talking about the same things. And then Jake Moody comes back from an injury, misses 3 kicks. Instead of having a 9-point lead, it's a one possession game, and it shouldn't have been a one possession game.
You know, something I noticed too about the defense, like I thought they did an okay job in the first half, but in the second half, man, it seemed like to me, and you guys may have seen it differently, but the Bucs really did commit to the run and commit to their 2 running backs. Bucky Irving had a pretty decent game, 13 rush attempts, 73 rush yards, a rushing touchdown, and White, he had 10 carries, 31 yards, and he also had a touchdown. Granted, late in the second quarter, one of their all-pro left tackle lineman, Tristan Wirfs, went down. So that's probably why they had to switch up the game plan a little bit. But they were actually moving the ball against us. And that was kind of concerning from a 49ers defensive perspective.
Yeah, I was very disappointed in the fact that they were able to move the ball without any of their top receivers. Bucky Irving is a top rookie, but we should still be able to stop him if we're truly a championship defense. And so that was a little concerning, but also I wasn't that surprised after watching them last week on Monday night against the Chiefs. Their offensive coordinator, I can't think of his name off the top of my head, is very creative in the way that he gives guys the ball, and he showed that today. Like, he was very just adaptive in what he needed to do as an offensive play caller, and I think he put his players in positions to make plays, and they made plays. But at the end of the day, we were able to win the game, which is all I was worried about. Like, I didn't care how pretty, how ugly, if it was a knockdown, drag you out type of fight, if it was a blowout, whatever it was. All the Niners needed was a W, and I think truly from this day forward, it's all must wins. And they got the win. It's a playoff style type of game, and this sets them up for a good game next week against the Seahawks, which we'll get into in our next pod and what we think that's going to look like. How we get them at home and puts us in a position again to make that end of the year run. So I'm looking forward to us building off of this win and moving on to the Seahawks. And I am curious to see what you guys have to say about the Seahawks game next week, but we'll get to that in our next pod.
Tristan Wirfs going down was actually probably the only reason why this game was even close, because we blew it on special teams. But Justin Skule came in. Justin Skule against Nick Bosa.
Ex-Niner.
Saw that.
Ex-Niner, Justin Skule, was a terrible matchup. Nick Bosa knows exactly what to do because he practices against this guy every day, because you're playing in practice your number 2 tackle against the number 1 defense. You're not going out there against, Trent Williams most of the time, and we won that game. One thing that I thought was really interesting was the 49ers offense keyed on George Kittle early in the game, and that was something that we were worried about for the Bucs doing against us with Cade Otton. We limited Cade Otton on defense. The Bucs couldn't do the same thing against our tight end. We both have great tight ends. I think Kadon has had multiple games. I think he set a record for the Bucks of multiple games over 8 receptions or something like that. But George Kittle looked like George Kittle, like the all-pro tight end that we've all hoped and wanted to see. And I think that's what actually really did carry our offense quite a bit, because even though the addition of McCaffrey was great, George Kittle made the biggest difference in the game. In my opinion, I think he had a couple, 2 or 3 first down catches. McCaffrey had a couple first down runs. But if you're talking about expectations versus reality, I think George Kittle in the red zone also was one of the best things that we could have possibly hoped for. And that was great to see. The 49ers, again, now we're in a situation where we can't even rely on our third-round kicker. Like Ryan was saying, we invested so much capital in Jake Moody. But if we can rely on a guy like George Kittle, I'm okay with that. So as long as Kittle stays healthy, we're looking good in the future.
One quick note about special teams. We shouldn't go unstated, but punt return, man. Jacob Cowing. To start the half, I believe the Bucks had the ball, and we held them to a 3-and-out. And they punted the ball. Jacob Cowing muffed the punt. And we put them in pretty good scoring position. And that's when they scored that green pass to Rachaad White to make it 10-10. And it was kind of a ball game from there. But again, it's one of those things. We talk about special teams. We harped about Jake Moody. Jacob Cowing really needs to figure out. He had some good returns earlier, but he really needs to work on securing that football, because those are game-changing plays, and it almost cost us.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It was Darrell Luter who was the guy that got blocked into Cowing trying to catch that ball, and then Darrell Luter was also the guy that touched the ball in the Super Bowl on our muff punt. So just guys being in positions that they have proven that they can't handle. That goes back to the coaching staff and not putting them in that position. But that is going to be something to keep an eye on with special teams. I think that Cowing's return was a huge difference maker in the game. After, having that muff and coming back, I think it was in the fourth quarter, maybe late third quarter, when he had that huge return back to the 40-yard line, I think it was, and just put the Niners in scoring position and allowed them to have an opportunity to win the game. That was a huge answer back, but yeah, the special teams, the missed field goals, the muff punt, all these things just keep happening every week, and it's like the Niners have to come up with ways to overcome special teams mishaps, and they're not going to be able to win a Super Bowl doing that. So at some point this season, they have to figure out the special teams game.
It's very simple. I mean, it's a facet of the game. You have offense, defense, special teams. And for whatever reason, we've neglected special teams. We talk about it. We harp about it. We reiterate the point again and again and again. And all we need from the 49ers is to just slightly improve. That's it. We're just asking, fair catch a punt. Don't muff a punt. Get a decent kick return. Or don't return. I mean, take a knee. Every other team is able to do this, but the 49ers are going to give an advantage to whoever we're playing and make it a close game when it shouldn't be. But with that, guys, I think that the 49ers pulled out a win where we really shouldn't have. I mean, we basically gave the Buccaneers this chance at a victory. Mo Smith, I'm sorry, but we beat you, and I will be texting you after this podcast, and I just wanted to make sure that we won before I texted you and talked shit when we were up. But once again, guys, I think the 49ers pulled it off, and I think that we got a great chance at a playoff run. We still got to win 6 more wins to make it a true playoff run. But with this win and last week's win, or not last week's, our last game's win against the Dallas Cowboys, we're in position to still make a run. And with that, boys, I think the 49ers station is here. So thank you. Like and subscribe if you've listened this long. Bang, bang.
Niner gang.
Niner gang.